We're back with episode 2 of Mission Control, the Bellwether Enterprise Podcast. I'm the host of the show, Ryan Dentscheff, and for today's episode of the podcast, I sat down with Anthea Martin, a senior vice president and loan originator, and Colleen Basil, transaction manager who works alongside Anthea out in Denver. The topic for today's show is women in commercial real estate. So the two of them talk about the challenges that they've faced and seen within the industry, different journeys that they've gone through to get to where they are in their careers, and then ultimately some things that they hope to see into the future to help project more women into leadership positions in the industry. So without further ado, let's jump right into a conversation with Anthea Martin and Colleen Basil.
So I guess starting off, if each of you kind of just want to talk about your background and go over kind of the history of how you got from where you were to Bellwether and all of that, whoever kind of wants to take the lead on that question.
Sure. Well, I'll get started. I probably have a little bit of a shorter background than Anthea does. So I was born and raised in the Denver area, grew up in a construction household. And so I've always been very interested in real estate in general, whether it be commercial, residential, anything real estate, design, I've always been very interested in. And so I went to school and studied finance, and within the finance program, I had some opportunities to get into real estate. My first opportunity, I was a part of a competition, a real estate competition, and I was led from there to an internship in investment sales, and from there to an internship in affordable housing development. And in that affordable housing development internship, I really realized my interest in the affordable housing world. I've always wanted to work for a nonprofit or somehow, give back to people through my work. And so that was a really good starting point for me in the industry. And then I was introduced to Bellwether through the University of Denver job posting site. And the interests of Bellwether and myself just aligned very well of our parent company being a nonprofit, doing affordable housing. So a way of giving back while still being able to build a successful career in commercial real estate. And so everything came together with Bellwether, and they had me start down in Dallas with our affordable housing group, working very closely with the producers there and our analytical team. And so through a couple of years of working down there and with the ultimate end goal of ending up back in Denver, it all just came together.
So Anthea, how about you, kind of your background and how you got to where you are today as senior vice president, is that correct?
Yes.
Gotcha.
So born and raised in New York City. I was actually born in New York during the 80s when there were a lot of homeless people on the streets, a lot of actually mentally ill homeless people on the streets. And that really impacted me as a child. I ended up going to business school. I went to NYU and moved out here to Denver after having worked as an intern at Lehman Brothers. Worked at Northmark Capital for a couple of years, which is a local mortgage bank. Was really focused on the commercial real estate side of the business at that point. Did some work with a HUD PAE, which is a participating administrative entity is what it's called. Essentially, I was a HUD contractor and I worked on HUD mark-to-market projects throughout the nation and traveled weekly, visited all of these Section 8 properties. And that was really when I found that I was able to combine my experience with commercial real estate with my passion for helping others, and got into the field of affordable housing and loved it. I absolutely loved meeting with the residents, underwriting the projects. So in short, I've been on the underwriting side of the business for 16 years. Most recently, I was underwriting with CBRE as the senior MAP underwriter, and always knew I wanted to transition to the sales side of the business. But to be honest, I have 3 children, and it took me a while to get over the pregnancies and raising the kids. And I wanted to make sure that they were at a point where I could leave them for a little bit longer and travel a little bit more. And so after being a MAP underwriter and getting to the point where my kids were older and I felt like they were more stable, I made the decision that I wanted to get into the origination side of the business. And because my passion's more on affordable housing and helping others, et cetera, Bellwether was a perfect fit. A mission-based, non-mortgage bank. They're the only ones out there that do what they do with a mission behind it. So I'm really glad I've landed here. I've been here now for about a year, and it truly feels like I'm aligning my own personal values with my experience.
Another part of that whole journey, and I guess is my understanding, you're both involved. Your Real Estate Diversity Initiative program, and my understanding you kind of are a mentor with the program. I guess if you guys can talk about like that, how that is, like what you do there, what that program's all about, and then kind of your role with the mentorship side of it, and then your role in like more of a participant, is my understanding. I'm not sure, so maybe you can kind of fill me in as well on all of the details behind that.
Sure. The Real Estate Diversity Initiative, we're actually celebrating our 10th year this year. Awesome. It's a collaboration between the City of Denver and ULI. The goal of the initiative is to encourage more women and minorities to join the commercial real estate industry, because right now there are not many of us. And this is my 3rd year serving as a mentor, and I'm really excited because Colleen's actually involved this year as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an amazing program. We've only had a couple of meetings so far this year, but I already feel like I've learned so much, and I'm just really excited about it. There are 3 teams there are 30 participants in the program. Each team has, I believe, 3 or 4 mentors from different sectors of the industry. So, we have an architect, we have a developer, a consultant. And so the goal of the program is to come up with a full development plan for a site in Denver. This year it's actually in Aurora, right on the border of Denver, and working together with people, other minorities who are either involved in the real estate industry or have an interest in the real estate industry, and working together to create a full scope development plan. It's
so
very
how
comprehensive.
Did you kind of hear about it or get involved with it? Were you familiar with it in the past? Like, how did that all come together?
Yeah, so I had heard Anthea talking about it in the past, and I knew of her involvement, and she had really great things to say about the program, and she recommended that I apply this year.
Gotcha.
So
I think one of the challenges of any job is that you get placed into one small piece of it, and it's always a challenge to get the full big picture scope of it. For me, it helped me to get my master's in real estate and construction management at DU. I felt like that was the point where I finally got the big picture of real estate and development, since I didn't major in that as an undergrad. And for others who don't have that opportunity to take that, to have that master's degree, Ready does that for them. The program itself just gives them that overview.
Gotcha. And you kind of alluded to just the overall scope of, obviously part of the mission is to get more, diversity within the industry, women in particular being kind of on the smaller percentage side of individuals in commercial real estate. So I guess if you can kind of speak from your experience on kind of how you've seen that maybe evolve, or maybe some of the challenges that you've overcome, or also like why you think it has been such a lag for getting more women, in the industry and everything like that.
Commercial real estate's traditionally been more male dominated. It is one of those industries where it's taken longer for women to excel in it. Part of that, I believe, is that it's a really demanding job, and for some women, having families becomes more of a priority. Another challenge, though, is that because it is male dominated, we as humans like to work with people who remind us of ourselves. And I think for men, it's just naturally finding other men, whether they be younger or older, that they relate to more. So it's very encouraging for me to see more women in the industry, because it's up to us to lift each other up. And as we climb that ladder, to bring people with us, along with us. Personally, what I've seen, I can speak to most recently at a company I was at. There were about 118 producers, and there were literally a handful of females. And I was the only minority female, and there were 2 male minority men. So diversity is it's difficult to find. And it's not just on the production side of the business, it's also the clients. I mean, a lot of the developers are also male. And once again, they like to work with people that remind them of themselves. It's just human nature. Yeah. So I'm very encouraged that there are more people entering the workforce, and I do hope that they stay in the industry so that they can lift each other up.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and you kind of mentioned, I think part of being a mentor in the diversity initiative, it's kind of showing the way that, it is possible for women to succeed and be successful in the industry and everything like that. So, how much, and you kind of talked about, mentoring Colleen, and with not just with the initiative program, but just overall in general, you guys are working here in the same office. You brought her over a few months ago, right? So like what you try to do as a woman in the industry who has been successful and had some longevity in the industry, how you see you serving as an individual who can motivate others and bring women up and show them like the possibilities of what can be done in the industry.
I think the best way I could do that is to be an example, and just, it is a delicate dance to be a female in business, and really in business in general. And part of that is that we have a certain expectation to behave a certain way, and that may be to be more soft-spoken and to be a little bit more passive. And it's just naturally been our role in society. And as we become more successful in business, the delicate dance that I mentioned is pushing back when you need to, but doing so where you don't come across as overly aggressive. You still have to maintain that femininity. And I think that's the challenge, is you need to act more masculine, but then you still need to be feminine. So, and then you need to go home and be even more feminine. Right. So it's a little bit of a challenge. And I do think the best way to do that and to help others into that role is just to be an example of
lead by example.
Yeah, lead by example.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Colleen, what's kind of your perspective, being up and coming in the industry and being, just getting started more or less over the last couple of years, kind of what's your perspective been being a young woman in the industry today?
Yeah. I definitely agree with everything that Anthea said. I think it is a balancing act. And I think that that's only going to become more true as I advance in my career. Being kind of at the entry level, you have a little bit more flexibility, I think, as a woman to be more bold, or, there might not be as much backlash as, an analyst.
Sure.
Being more upfront about things than maybe like a female producer. And so I think it's been really important to me to have a female producer as an example, a strong example of how I should be, shaping my career. And I also think that I'm coming into the industry at an exciting time when there are programs such as the Ready program and companies like Bellwether, that I think it's been made very clear to me that diversity is important to Bellwether. And so, I think there are a lot of opportunities out there for women and for minorities that there weren't, 10 years ago even. And so it's been made apparent to me that there are challenges, but that there are also tools that we can use to overcome those challenges. And those have been made readily available to me. So I've had a great experience.
Awesome. Well, thanks for both sitting down with me today. I think we're closing in, wrapping up. But before we you shut out, wanted to talk about, Anthea, specifically your perspective, since you've kind of been in the industry, for a while now, just what you see the future, what that holds for women in the industry, and where kind of we're headed, and maybe the room to grow for women in the industry, kind of your perspective on all of that.
Sure. Certainly there is room to grow. Their companies have done a really good job at increasing diversity. I think it's a focus for companies across the board, across many industries. What you are still seeing, though, is that when the closer you get to money, where the real money is, there are less women at the top. And I would like to see more women get to the top. And as I mentioned previously, those women lift up other women along the way. But we certainly need to see an even distribution of women, not just in the entry-level roles, but also at the top.
Gotcha. Is there anything, we talked some of the initiative programs and just some of the growth diversity-wise with businesses. Is there anything specifically that you see that, can be done, hopefully will be done, to actually kind of address some of those, address some of the lack of women in the industry, like ways you think that could kind of address that?
There are many great programs and lots of company initiatives. I think it comes down to companies truly supporting and lifting women up, and as obviously only if it's well deserved. But if there are women working hard, I'd like to see more companies lifting them up to executive roles. And I think that's where the true change is going to come. It's not going to come from an initiative or a program. It's going to come from women truly getting to the top.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. We had some speakers in the Ready program last night, and they were talking a lot about their diversity initiatives within their companies. And it was all great. I think it's a really great step in the right direction, especially for these large development companies that are historically and still are mostly male dominated. But the one thing that I think was missing from the whole conversation was tools to give that workforce, from the entry level, tools that are going to bring them to leadership and executive management roles. Because if you look at any, the statistics of women in leadership and executive management specifically, it's basically, it's very, very small percentages of women at the top. And, that's half our population that's being excluded from making the decisions that are going to actually impact, the company and the public and, everything. So,
and when you look at most companies and you look at their boards or the executives of the company, you tend to see women who, and there's nothing wrong with this, but you tend to see women more in marketing roles or HR roles. And one thing that really attracted me to Bellwether is Debbie Rogan. She's in a key executive role in the company. She was one of the founders of the company. And I found a video of her speaking about her experience in commercial real estate. And I wanted to make sure that the company that I work for is truly supporting of women, and Debbie being in a position like that made me feel it was true.
Absolutely. Gotcha. Well, like I said, thanks again for sitting down with me. I think this was a great conversation. And
thank you.
Thanks.